Hello again, I'm back to show you Microsoft Forms. Earlier, I went over Class Notebook and its uses and how it has helped me with my class flow and organization. And just to clarify, also, I have different notebooks for different classes, and I can always copy information from one notebook to another by right clicking, move, or copy. And then I can paste it into any other notebook. And that's an easy way, so you don't have to be creating new pages for each individual notebook. You can just do it with one. But putting class notebook aside, I'm going to go back to onedrive.dateschools.net, which is where I have my OneDrive applications. And we are going to explore another application known as Microsoft Office Forms. Microsoft Office Forms is very similar to Google Forms, and it has the same uses. You can create forms to get information like from a survey. You can use forms for an application. You can use forms for informal assessments and quizzes. I personally use forms for study guide questions, as you can see here. So I will show you some examples of study guide questions. I have also used it in chemistry for short little 4 or 5, even 10 question quizzes, and I'll show you what that looks like. And at some of the professional developments for technology, they have also given us Microsoft Forms to give feedback or information about the actual professional development. So these are all the forms that I have saved onto my form account. So let me go ahead and actually show you one of my forms. So I'm sure it's very similar to Google Forms, but here's an alternative if you do have a Microsoft account. So for example, this is my form for my Chapter 9 study guide questions for my AP Environmental class. I have all the questions from the study guide that I have here. My students don't have to write it on paper, and they don't even have to do it on Word. They just use a link that I provide to them, and they can type their answers, and it allows them to have long answers so that I can go in and check and give feedback and so forth. The reason I like this is because, number one, in environmental science, we want to cut down on the amount of paper that we use. Also, when it comes to paper, sometimes I get overwhelmed with paper and I have to bring papers and notebooks home, and that can be bothersome, and sometimes I misplace things. And in order to decrease that, I try to use more electronic platforms in order to check assignments. Also, it will tell you if any answers were copied exactly the same, so it'll highlight them and let you know that this many people or what students have the same answers in case they're trying to cheat, so they do know they have to reword things into their own words. And I get analytics. If it's multiple choice, the students get automatic feedback. If it's free response, I have to go back and check their answers. And once I check their answers, they can see the feedback through the same link that I provided to them. So they access it, and then here I have my responses, and I can review the answers, and I can review the answers by student, or I can review the answers by question. So if it's easier for me to go through them by question, then I would do all the questions, assign them points, and if for any reason there's something that's wrong, like it's too short, they know they have to write in complete sentences and so forth, I make notes. You would click on here to make a note, and then you would type in whether any feedback, whether they need to write in complete sentences, whether they need to elaborate more, include more information, missing details, and so forth. Once I'm done, I go back and I post the scores for my study guide questions, and then they know and get the feedback on how they did, and then they have access to it. Now that's an example of a form that has open response questions. And let me see if I can find another one. For example, here I have an electrochemistry quiz that I gave my chemistry students, and this quiz was only 5 questions and it was all multiple choice, and I could see my responses here. So here I have it set up so that I can get information from their responses right away, and they can get feedback immediately from their turned in assignment. So I know how many students chose the correct answer, and if there were any students who chose a different answer. So this is all the analytics that I get from my students on this assignment. Again, if I want to look at the answers or review the answers, then I can look through it. I can see each individual student and what they chose as a correct answer and so forth. But this is an old assignment in which I have already checked. And it'll give me all this information. So if we were to create our own form, you can choose to create a new form or create a new quiz. Most of the time it's a new quiz because it'll be an assignment that I'll be grading. So let's say that we're going to create a class flow quiz, enter my name, and I would add a question. You can add a choice question, a text question, ratings, so I can, what rating would you give Microsoft Forms? And you can choose whether there will be 5 stars, 10 stars. They don't have to be stars, they can be numbers, and whether it's required or not. You can add a multiple choice question, and in the multiple choice question you can insert an image or a video. All of these options are very similar to the ones that we have available on Google Forms. And then you decide how many points you want to assign per question and so forth. You can change the theme or background. You can actually use pictures or backgrounds from the internet. So if I want to add something about educational technology, I can always choose any image from the internet in order to insert it into the background of my image or my quiz. Once you've created your quiz, you can share it, and this is how I share it. I copy the link. You have a QR code. You can embed it. When I use Office Sway, Microsoft Sway, I embed it and it actually inserts the quiz or form into the presentation. You can email it. And when I copy it, I copy the link. Usually I copy the link so that I can insert it into my class notebook. And I can insert the link, and then my students have access to it. So usually when I go to my calendars, you see here I inserted the form so they can access the form through the link or through the actual OneNote. And then once they submit their answers, you will automatically receive their answers and you can check them at your convenience. So hopefully you enjoyed this video on Microsoft Forms, and maybe you will consider switching from Google to Microsoft. Whatever the case may be, this technology definitely helps out in our class workflow and also decreases the amount of paper that we use every day.